What is going on, everybody? Welcome on into press coverage where help you get an edge in fantasy football. I'm your host, as always, Wyatt Bertalone, and today I'm talking Dynasty sells. Everybody loves to talk about the players that they want to buy in Dynasty. Everybody wants to hear good news. Everyone wants to hear about the players they should be going out and getting, players they should be excited for. But today, that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about players that we should be selling, players we're trying to get out of currently based on the Dynasty marketplace. The first player I'm going to talk about today is Nico Collins. Now, this is no hate to Nico. This is a player that I really like, a player that I've been ahead of market on for a while now, actually. Even before the breakout, he was a player that I was really interested in. Not to toot my own horn too much, but I just want to put that out there to show you that this isn't just hate on Nico Collins. I think he's a really good player. He's been top 9 in PPR points per game each of the last 3 seasons, despite everything that's gone on with Houston and CJ Stroud, his injuries. I also think he's probably going to have a pretty good 2026. I'm in on him for redraft. I'm in on him for strictly 2026. All the moves that the Texans have made so far last year and coming into this season, I don't think any of this really takes away from Nico Collins in any way. I know Tank Dell is coming back. Again, I don't think that takes away from Nico Collins. Tank Dell was really good as a rookie, was okay as a sophomore before the injury. We have no idea what he's going to be like coming back from that devastating knee injury, one of the worst knee injuries we've ever seen. I'm not counting on a lot from Tank Dell. I think he's actually a pretty nice flyer based on the cost, but we have to be ready for him to be a nothing, and that's why he's got a lower cost. But I say a lot to say, I don't think he's really going to take away from Nico Collins based on Nico Collins building this rapport with CJ Stroud over this last few years. But looking at the price point, on Keep Trade Cut, he's wide receiver 12. On Dynasty League Football's latest startup ADP, he was wide receiver 10. Dynasty Data Lab startup ADP, he was wide receiver 11. And based on those valuations, it's possible to use Nico Collins to tier down to the likes of Tetsuo McMillan, George Pickens, Chris Olave, all players that honestly I like straight up over Nico Collins right now. Tetsuo McMillan is obviously the bet on future production and that what he was as a prospect, offensive rookie of the year season, and continuing to build on that as Bryce Young's #1 target. I think he's capable of being better than Nico Collins, or at least producing on a Nico Collins level, and he's much younger. George Pickens is coming off the best season of his career, in which he was better than Nico Collins, re-signed with the Cowboys, so he's in that great situation. We're expecting another really good year from George Pickens, another player where I'm not even saying he's going to be better than Nico Collins, but if he's at least at all similar, and you can get a bonus added on George Pickens to trade away Nico Collins, that's obviously a good move. And then Chris Olave, coming off his best season as well, ranked behind Nico Collins. It's possible to tier down to him. I do think Chris Olave could have a better season than Nico Collins again, like he did last year. He's in a really good situation, in my opinion, there with the Saints. Kellen Moore loves to run a ton of plays, likes to run a lot of pass plays. Tyler Shuck, impressed as a rookie. He's Tyler Shuck's #1 guy. That doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. So again, tiering down from Nico to any of these wide receivers in Dynasty, getting similar production, possibly better production, or much younger in some cases, just seems like a home run move for me. But again, no hate on Nico. I like Nico. This is purely a Dynasty marketplace take. The next player I've got here is Rome Odunze. His values are KTC, wide receiver 15. DLF, he was wide receiver 18 on Dynasty Data Lab, wide receiver 17. A little bit of variation in his price, but as you see, high-end wide receiver 2 to mid-end wide receiver 2 in Dynasty. His 2025 season was interesting to say the least. He started off extremely hot. The first 4 games, 19.4 PPR points per game. Easily the Bears' #1 target. Then after that, we deal with injury. After that, only 2 games over 9 PPR points in his next 7. Then he ends up missing the end of the regular season, the last bit of that. Comes back in the playoffs, isn't very productive there for the Bears. And in that time, we saw Luther Burden and Colson Loveland really start to see their roles grow, especially Colson Loveland. Luther Burden obviously had some really big weeks at the end of the season as well. So coming into 2026, DJ Moore is no longer on the team. But where's Rome Odunze in the pecking order now? I think it's safe to say that we don't know who's going to be the #1 target for the Bears in 2026. I would not be surprised if it's any of Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, or Colson Loveland. Honestly, would not surprise me one way or the other. I kind of lean towards it being Colson Loveland personally, but I think it's close between all of them. And that might not be good enough for Rome Odunze. We're not positive Caleb Williams can support all three at the same time yet. I think he's potentially able to. I'm not sure if he's there yet. I think he's far away enough to have a lack of confidence in this kind of price on Rome Odunze. So looking at possible tear down options, honestly, there's a lot of them because I think this is an aggressive price in Dynasty that we're seeing across the marketplace. Looking through these different marketplaces, you can see Ladd McConkey, T. Higgins, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, Zay Flowers, Jameson Williams, all being ranked below him, which means they're all tear down options for Rome Odunze. All of those players could produce similarly or better than him easily this year and moving forward. Would not surprise me whatsoever with any of them. A lot of them would be betting favorites, in my opinion, to do better than Rome Odunze in 2026 and beyond. So I really think Rome Odunze is just overpriced at this point. I do want to recognize like the potential really is there. I mean, that 4-game sample to start 2025 exists, and that was with Colson Loveland, Luther Burden, DJ Moore on the roster. Now, Loveland and Burden were rookies, so naturally, they're going to be a little bit slower to get started to start the season. But that still did exist for Rome Odunze, right? They were on him and Caleb Williams were really on the same page to start that season. And if they can keep that going, if they can get that back, he could get there. But I mean, if we're just going to look at the metrics here on Player Profiler, Rome Odunze has been 81st and 99th in catchable target rate over the last 2 seasons because him and Caleb Williams have not really been on the same page for a lot of Rome Odunze's targets. It is what it is. And that's a big factor here. So I'm using Rome Odunze to tier down to all these other, like what are projected wide receiver 2s in fantasy at a cheaper price that you'd be able to get an asset added on, whether that's a draft pick, an additional player, or whatever. I mean, I would take a lot of these players over Rome Odunze straight up. So getting any sort of bonus on top of them is gravy to me, but you try and get as much as you can. Rome Odunze, absolutely a sell. I've got a lot more players to talk about, players that I want to be selling. But before I get there, we're going to talk about the Dynasty Dominator app.
Ooh, trade just came in on my phone. Let's see. Should I make it? I don't know. I want to make a move now, though. I don't want to wait to get back to my computer. What do I do? Oh, we have the Dynasty Dominator app that scores a trade based on our lifetime value rating at playerprofiler.com. We also give you just a price lookup tool with the ADP to say, what is this guy really worth? And the app has a player comparison tool to juxtapose the advanced metrics of 2 players. This is $5 in the App Store. That's it. So we want you to do deep research on playerprofiler.com, but we also want you to be able to make moves in the moment. So go get that Dynasty Dominator now. It's in the App Store. It's on Google Play. And you can thank me later.
Back here on Press Coverage, check out that Dynasty Dominator app. Check out playerprofiler.com. Like and subscribe to this video. If you're listening onto your favorite podcasting platform, rate us 5 stars, please. Also, let me know in the comments of either platform. What do you think about these players that I'm saying to sell? Maybe you think that we should be buying these players. Let me know why. If you agree with me, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. All right, next player, Travis Hunter. Another one of these seasons in 2025 that's a bit interesting, right? He's slow going in the start of the season, going back and forth between offense and defense, trying to get his feet wet in both places. Jaguars are trying to figure out exactly the best way to use Travis Hunter as he gets accustomed to the NFL. Then he really starts to break out, and it looks like this is about to be his wide receiver room. He has a really good game going into the bye, but then it comes out, he's got a knee injury, and he's done for the season. Next thing you know, the Jaguars trade for Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers plays really well, gets an extension in season. Then down the stretch of the year, we got Parker Washington coming on the scene and playing better than any of the wide receivers in the Jaguars offense had played all year into the playoffs. So now we're looking forward to 2026, where this is all of a sudden a really crowded wide receiver room. Brian Thomas is still there, and I still think he's talented. And his sophomore season was confounding as well. What happened there. I think possibly we'll find out at some point that the injuries were kind of being reported for him to start the season were maybe worse than we really knew and kind of affected more than we thought. And he had a little bit of trouble adjusting to Liam Cohen's offense because it seemed like Liam Cohen tried to have him be that kind of like slot player a little bit sometimes where they just try to get the ball in their hands and that across the middle of the field. And that wasn't really working for Thomas. Once he got him back to the outside, almost strictly outside, Thomas played a little bit better. But all that's to say that there's a lot of wide receivers here, right, for the Jaguars. And we know Travis Hunter can play two ways, and he debatably is a better cornerback than he is wide receiver. Now, we're looking at some of the prices for Travis Hunter across the marketplace. Keep trade cut is wide receiver 37. DLF startup ADP, wide receiver 40. Dynasty Data Lab startup ADP was wide receiver 38. Fairly cheap prices, just kind of in general, right, for a player that was so highly thought of just a year ago. But the problem is when are you going to play this player? When are you actually be able to get fantasy points from him? Because it seemed like in 2026, he might not be playing very much wide receiver. And I don't know when he will be again. Now, if you're in a best ball dynasty league, it's a little bit more palatable because I'm sure they're still going to drop some plays from an offense, and he might have a couple weeks over the course of the year where he really, booms and has a nice week and scores a touchdown or whatever. But in managed leagues, how are you going to feel confident playing him in your lineups? I mean, we might be 2 injuries away before we feel actually confident putting Travis Hunter in our lineups right now. And if that's the case, it's not just a player I don't want to hang on to, waiting for the bounce back to happen. In the meantime, I'll try and sell him. And if I feel like things are trending back towards them coming around, I can decide if I want to buy in at that price. But I don't want to be caught holding the bag or waiting around for fantasy points when I'm not sure when they're going to come. Now, like I said, that price is fair. So who can we actually get based on the price he's at? Well, actually, we can do pretty well. Looking across the marketplace, you have options of tearing down Ricky Pearsall, Jaden Higgins, Michael Pittman, Terry McLaurin. That Terry McLaurin one is one that I'm particularly fond of if you're a competing team, because I think Terry McLaurin could have a really great season again in 2026. Look at the advanced stuff on playerprofiler.com for Terry McLaurin in 2025, and a lot of it looks really good. Of course, he had the great 2024 season. Michael Pittman on the Steelers, we don't know who their quarterback is right now. That's just kind of betting on that player who's been a consistent producer for years and years. I expect him to do more of the same. Jaden Higgins, a little bit of an exciting rookie. Came on a little bit slow himself, but showed more as a pass catcher, actually putting up fantasy points than Travis Hunter did last year, and is more than likely to actually be doing that in 2026. Ricky Pearsall, similar to both of them, Higgins and Hunter, in a way that he's shown some flashes, but we haven't seen enough of them. But we know he's going to be playing wide receiver for the 49ers, and betting on him staying healthy is something I think I'd like to do at his current price point. So I'm moving on from Travis Hunter. All right. Our next player is Tyler Allgeier. Right now on Keep Trade Cut, he's RB26. On Dynasty League Football Startup ADP, he was RB38. Dynasty Data Lab Startup ADP, RB30. So a lot of variance in the price here for Tyler Allgeier, which is honestly, I think, kind of expected for him, because entering free agency, he was kind of looked at as, after the first wave of top running backs that were available in free agency, he was kind of looked at as being the next best guy after that. And he was expected to get a nice contract to come be an obvious starter somewhere. And then the contract he got was not really that. 2 years, $12.25 million contract with the Cardinals. It's a little bit of confidence, but it's not as much confidence as I thought I'd have for him based on a contract like that. And it actually makes me think the situation with him in the Cardinals is a little bit muddy. James Conner did take a pay cut to stay with the team, but he's been so good for the Cardinals while he's been there. And I'm sure the Cardinals want him around, which is why they reworked his contract to keep him. If they just didn't want him around anymore, if they thought he was done, they would just cut him, which was, why they reworked, why he was okay with reworking the contract deal. He's going to take the money, right? And James Conner is the better pass catcher of the two. I don't think Trey Benson's much of a factor here, but if it's going to be a money situation between James Conner and Tyler Allgeier, even if Tyler Allgeier is the main rusher of the two and gets more touches of the two, if James Conner is doing the majority of the pass catching, that's where a lot of fantasy points are. And this is a bad team that the Cardinals are going to be playing from behind quite often, which means they're probably going to want their passing down back in more often than not. I think that's going to be James Conner. So I actually think this is more money maybe than people realize. I don't have a lot of confidence in Tyler Allgeier in 2026. I think his price is a little bit too much. When we're looking at those prices, like the KTC RB26 is way too high for me. The DLF startup ADP of RB38 is more appropriate, but I would even say still could be too high, because if you look around the marketplace, and like on DLF, you can still find players like J.K. Dobbins, Kenneth Gainwell, or Jonathan Brooks after him. J.K. Dobbins locked in RB2 when he's healthy for the Broncos. We basically know that based on what happened last year, what it looks like it's going to happen again this year. Kenneth Gainwell really impressed last year and signed a contract with the Buccaneers worth almost $8 million more than what Tyler Allgeier got. I expect him to have a nice role for the Buccaneers as a pass catcher. Again, we love pass catching for running backs. That's where fantasy points come from. And then Jonathan Brooks, I realize he's coming back from 2 ACLs in the same knee, but he sat out. He's reportedly healthy, going to be healthy going into the season. And the Panthers have stuck it through with him so much so that they let Rico Dowdle walk because of how confident they were feeling about Jonathan Brooks coming into this season. Chuba Hubbard's been good at times, but he hasn't been super impressive lately. So there could be something there for him. Why not take the shot that Jonathan Brooks actually takes that backfield at this price point? Like, what are you getting on a Tyler Allgeier? 10 PPR points per game? Like, what do? You can find that, in your dynasty leagues fairly cheaply every year. RB2, most easily replaceable spot on your dynasty rosters year in and year out. So don't waste your time on Tyler Allgeier. Go out and find someone you could find a possible higher ceiling. Take a risk on Jonathan Brooks. I'd rather take the risk on Jonathan Brooks being a 0 and take the chance that he actually turns into something than just take out Tyler Allgeier, who I'm not even going to feel confident about starting every week. My next player is Kyle Monangai. On KTC, he was RB27, DLF RB27, Dynasty Data Lab RB25. Pretty consistent here for Kyle Monangai. 8.6 PPR points per game as a rookie. Impressed everybody, honestly, because nobody really thought much of him coming into the season. 7th round rookie draft pick, not a dynamic athlete. He's not much of a pass catcher. Didn't have a good prospect profile, obviously, by his draft capital. But he was able to come in and just grind out tough yards over and over again for the Bears and, thrive in this Ben Johnson system. Now, the thing about Kyle Monangai is that these day 3 running backs, boy, do they just never seem to last. No matter how they perform, how they do, the rare ones like Kyron Williams just don't come up very often. These day 3 running backs never really hold on to their positions because the teams have nothing invested in them. And when you're a back like Kyle Monangai, who's not particularly dynamic, he's not a good pass catcher, it's even harder for them to hang on. I'm not trying to take anything away from Kyle Monangai because he showed that he's an NFL quality running back. He does a really good job of just picking up chunk gains in the running game. But you can find that as an NFL team. The good thing for the Kyle Monangai is the Bears, I'm kind of liking the way the front office works. And I like Ben Johnson, which leads me a little bit to believe that their front office will understand. They kind of found a gem where they found this, solid NFL running back for really cheap. We should try and keep him in that role. I don't know if it'll continue or not. I also think that Ben Johnson offense is a big part of his success. I think it's a big part of why DeAndre Swift had a lot of success in 2025 as well. But this price is just too high for that profile. Even if we get a little bit of improvement from Kyle Monangai, how can you feel safe that you'll continue to get it for years to come? I can't. I can't bet on that player at that price. And you look at the price, like I said, RB27, RB27, RB25. That means he's just straight up valued over Tyler Allgeier everywhere, meaning those same trades I was just saying you could do, but you could probably get a better bonus add on top, another asset added on top, a better draft pick added, moving down from Kyle Monangai to those J.K. Dobbins, Kenneth Gainwell, Jonathan Brooks types. That's a move that I want to be making. I like Kyle Monangai. He impressed. It's just this is too high a price when you're a day 3 running back who's not dynamic, not a pass catcher. Last player I'm going to talk about today is Isaiah Likely. You may not have seen my tweet about Isaiah Likely this past week. I got some buzz going on that because basically his dynasty value has never lined up to the production you've actually gotten from him since he was a rookie. He impressed at the end of his rookie season. People got over their skis with him, expecting him to take more and more from Mark Andrews. It never really happened. And he's always been valued as like a high-end tight end 2, low-end tight end 1. And he's just never been worth it. And he's still valued that way. And we'll talk about the contract, but I'll talk about these prices first. On KTC, tight end 11. On DLF and Dynasty Data Lab, he's tight end 14 in their startup ADPs. He's coming off the worst season of his career in 2025. Nobody wants to talk about that. But he goes and signs a 3-year, $40 million contract to follow John Harbaugh to the Giants. It's a good amount of money. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely a good amount of money. But this is also just what tight ends make these days. And I feel like that sticker tag surprises people every time a tight end gets that tag, that price tag, when they may have not been worth it or may have not done enough to make you think that they're worth that amount of money. It makes you think the coaching staff or the front office feel stronger than they do about this player. Pat Freiermuth and Cole Kmet make a similar amount of money per year. In fact, when they signed their contract extensions, they signed for more years, so they had more total money attached to their contracts. And what do people feel about those players now? What do we get out of those contract extensions? Not much. This is just what tight ends get paid on the open market now once you're a certain level. And yeah, I'll say Isaiah Likely is on the same level as a Cole Kmet or Pat Freiermuth. I think he's better than those players. Still not worth, fringe tight end one value in Dynasty to me. It's just the way it is. And then just thinking about what he's going to be on the Giants, I know a lot of people are looking at this and say, well, he's finally going to be able to break out. He's going to be able to, play more snaps, get more opportunities for the Giants. I'm just not so sure about that. What happened to Theo Johnson? Theo Johnson's still there. He kind of impressed a little bit last year, and he's straight up a better inline player than Isaiah Likely. We could have the same problem for Isaiah Likely with the Giants as he had with the Ravens, in that he is still a part-time player because he's essentially a big wide receiver, and he can't be in all situations. When the Giants get into, jumbo formations near the goal line and stuff like this, I don't know how often Isaiah Likely is going to be there, because Theo Johnson's just straight up bigger, better player in line, better blocker. Tight ends need to be a threat as a blocker to be able to be in all situations and be able to attack in all situations and have opportunities in all situations. And I'm just not sure that Isaiah Likely has that wrapped up in 2026. Do I think he's going to do better than he did in the past? Yeah, probably. But why are you paying this price for that type of production? It's just not worth it to me. I'd much rather look to tier down to Dalton Kincaid or Mason Taylor right now. Based on the marketplaces, those look like the two best tier down options to me with Isaiah Likely. Dalton Kincaid, really similar to Isaiah Likely, honestly, in the type of players they are, what they mean to an offense, the way that they have to play a limited role, but they're good receivers, except we've seen higher highs from Dalton Kincaid with the Bills. I have no idea why Dalton Kincaid would be ranked below Isaiah Likely, but you can find it that way. And then Mason Taylor, it's a tough situation for the Jets, but there is plenty of opportunity for a pass catcher to earn opportunity in that offense. And Mason Taylor was a nice player as a rookie, high draft capital. Why not grow it? Again, this is one of those, I'd rather just take the shot that Mason Taylor grows into something more than Isaiah Likely is with an added additional asset on than keep Isaiah Likely in hope that we see a version of him that we haven't seen yet in this new situation. It's just not something that I want to bet on. But that's going to do it for this episode of Press Coverage. I really appreciate all of you out there for watching. Please like and subscribe, as I said before. Let me know in the comments if you agree with these or if you disagree with these. I just want to hear from you in general. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know your thoughts. Sign up to Fast Draft if you haven't yet. Use code Wyatt. You get a first-time deposit match up to $50. There's lots of cool drafts happening there right now. I appreciate all of you. I'll see you next time.